Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Farzy show here at the Steven Singer Studios. Hope you guys had a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Maybe because it's the draft, I feel like it's a lot later in the week, even though we're in the middle of the week on a very nice hump day, if you will. I'm actually excited. I have great anticipation for not really, tomorrow's show as much as I do for Friday's show, when we all most likely lose our damn minds over whatever it is the Eagles are going to do in the first round of the NFL draft coming up tomorrow, Thursday, from Cleveland. To help us understand whatever the Eagles could be doing, my good friend Reuben from NBC Sports Philadelphia will be joining the program coming up in a couple of minutes here. So I look forward to covering all the bases with the great Reuben Frank. If you're an Eagles fan and you don't follow Reuben Frank, what are you doing? You got to follow Rube. Rube does an amazing job. I can tell you right now from firsthand knowledge that Reuben's 10 observations after every Eagles game is one of the most popular things people clickety-clack on right after a Birds game. So Reuben Frank will join the show to let us know whatever the Eagles are going to be doing coming up that first round. Sal Palantonio weighed in on it recently on his own social media account. We will put that out there for you as well coming up in a minute or two. We got some Phillies conversation to get into, and we got some Sixers conversation to get into. Phillies, I don't know what that was last night, and I really hate saying that so many times, especially talking about the offensive side of things for the Phillies. We'll let you hear from Joe Girardi as to what he thinks the remedy could be. And it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes ever from a movie. And we'll get to that in a minute. Well, like I said, we also get to the 76ers. They got a couple of games coming up here against the Atlanta Hawks. And no Trae Young, as you know. Clint Capella's playing for him again. A lot of stuff going on with that Hawks team that leaves you scratching your head. But I believe the Sixers go into tonight's game against the Atlanta Hawks as 8-point favorites. So at least there's that. The Hawks beat them in their first matchup earlier in the season on January 11th. And that was a game that the Sixers certainly did not have their full starting five all together. This will be a game where they will have their starting five together. So hopefully you see another dominant performance from the 76ers tonight, and they hopefully work their way back to the number one seed before the season lets out. The schedule does get easy on the Sixers, as we did talk about yesterday, and hopefully tonight will be another example of that. Let's start it off with those Phillies. Can they get an outfield, like at all, in terms of fielding at least? Because Andrew McCutchen has left a lot to be desired in left field. Bryce Harper has left a lot to be desired in right field, certainly. Great assist that he had the other day. Wonderful, cool, whatever. But in terms of consistency, it's really been a problem. So McCutchen gets a day off yesterday. Brad Miller goes into play left field and botches a ball hit at him. That is a typical ball hit to any left fielder in Major League Baseball, and any even average left fielder in Major League Baseball comes up with that play in either a sliding grab or is able to read it off the bat better than the way Brad Miller was able to read that yesterday. And here's what I will say. Obviously, he's not an everyday outfielder. He's not an everyday left fielder, and that was a tough play. However, even if he doesn't read it well off the bat, don't you got to go into some semblance of an athletic slide to try to make a sliding grab to make a play on that baseball as opposed to letting it go past you in left field? It was awful. And you end up letting a run score off of that. Eflin gets into trouble because of that. And I give a lot of credit to Zach Eflin for yesterday's performance. I thought he gutted out 6 2/3 worth of baseball from the hill yesterday. But then later in that game, you take him out. You bring in Coonrod, for instance. He gets in a situation where I believe he has runner at the corners. A line drive is hit into right center field. The ball hits off of the top of the wall. It looked like all Bryce Harper had to do, because he was actually in the right spot, was raise his mitt in the air. Instead, I don't know if he lost track of where the baseball was. I believe it was Williams in right field for the Cardinals yesterday to do the same thing. He was feeling for the wall, and he wasn't even on the warning track. Maybe it was a hard ball to pick up there in right field. But Harper tracked the ball perfectly to the wall. All he had to do was raise his mitt in the air and make a catch, and you're out of that inning. Unfortunately, he doesn't see the ball, or he misreads where it was. Whatever happened, 2 runs end up scoring in that inning, and he end up really blowing it open for the Cardinals to take advantage and really ride that inning to a victory. Phillies were down in that inning They were obviously down more after Harper failed to make that play. So what are you doing in the corner outfield spot? Odubel Herrera has actually tracked some fly balls and some line drives hit at him well over the last couple of games. So there's that, I guess. I still don't have really any doubt that even Roman Quinn or Mickey Moniak would have gotten to those baseballs. So you're not really talking about much of an improvement there, as a guy is, 0 for 6 so far in his return to the major league level. But when you talk about the corner outfield spots, you got to have some production from those spots in terms of defensive ability, and you haven't seen that from Bryce Harper, and you're certainly not going to get that from Brad Miller. So for the people that were a little critical of Dave Dombrowski taking over this team and hopefully plugging some holes before the season, you go into the season, I'll give him credit, with a bullpen. It's not his fault that Archie Bradley got an oblique strain. It's not his fault that Alvarado, of course, had his injury as well. But you look at the corner outfield spots, or excuse me, you look at the center field spot, you look at the left field spot, and you would think that they would have done something to upgrade those positions, at least in a backup role. Instead, I still don't feel like you have a center fielder in this organization, and Odubel Herrera is doing a great job so far, at least from the plate in the first 2 games, of proving me right on that. And then Andrew McCutchen and Brad Miller, that's the answer? And then today you're going to allow Phillies fans the pleasure to look at Vince Velasquez starting another game for this baseball team? How is Spencer Howard not the better option at this point? How is a guy you have groomed as a starting pitcher in their minor league system, how is that guy not the better option to be a starter? And I don't want to hear, well, he's been a bullpen guy now, so they got to stretch him out. Then you should have already stretched him out. Once you saw Vince Velasquez start a game for you, that's where you already should have said to Spencer Howard, hey, Spence, guess what? We're going to stretch your ass out. We're going to allow you to go out of the bullpen, back to the starting position here for the Phillies, back to the starting rotation, and we're going to stretch you out. Once you had an idea, once you had a whiff of Vince Velasquez starting baseball games for you again, should have been like, hey, Spencer, let's get it going here, buddy. We got to get you going. I can't believe that we're going to see another starting performance from Vince Velasquez. I'll give Vince Velasquez credit. 3 innings in Colorado, of all places, scoreless. Got to that 4th inning, not scoreless anymore. But at least it was 3 innings. And as I said after that game, it was Monday we were talking about this. After that game, I said, hey, any game that Vince Velasquez give you 3 scoreless innings, let alone what happens in that 4th inning, you got to win that baseball game. They weren't able to do that. Hopefully he'll give I don't know, something similar of an effort today when you see the Phillies take on the Cardinals again. And now the 3rd game of this 4-game series. After the game, and this is what I was referencing earlier, it reminded me of one of my favorite movie quotes. There's a little medley put together on the Phillies website, Phillies.com, from Joe Girardi and the struggling bats in this Phillies lineup. Take a listen to this.
Like Alec Bohm hit 2 balls really well today. Nothing to show for it. And he's frustrated and, understandably so. I mean, we just need a little change of luck. We need a couple bloopers, a couple slow rollers, and maybe it'll get everybody going. We've had chances to. We haven't come through a lot of times in the clutch. Our bullpen got disrupted with missing a couple guys. I mean, Alvarado hadn't thrown for 2 weeks. Archie's been out 2 weeks. At times it's been our defense, but obviously I believe the talent is in there. We just need to play better.
That's always what a manager, I think, is going to say. The talent is there. You just need to play better. Because what are you going to have a manager say? Well, we all suck, so that's the problem. No, you're not going to say that. You do have talent in this lineup. You do have guys like Alec Bohm, I think, right now, underperforming. Didi Gregorius has been one of your most consistent hitters throughout the young season, to this point. He's had some struggles recently. But Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, yes, those are the guys that are supposed to be carrying this lineup. Andrew McCutchen has given you nothing in this Phillies lineup. Not that you really saw him last night. And your center field spot has given you absolutely nothing as well throughout the season, no matter who's playing center field for the Phillies. Like the guy that's been your most consistent guy over the last week has been a guy who's never played at Major League Baseball's level before, and that's Nick Maton up until this point. At what point is somebody gonna step up? At what point is somebody not named Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, or Rhys Hoskins step up and carry this lineup? And I thought Ricky Metallico actually made a great point. And not actually, like I'm surprised by it, but in his in a big pool of great points by Ricky Metallico, he made another one last night. My friend Ricky, that you can't have individualized numbers, and that might sound weird in baseball, where that's all it is individualized numbers. The most individual team sport there is. But when you see the numbers from Rhys Hoskins and Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto, even Gene Segura, when he wasn't hurt, it's like one guy gets hot, and then that guy's done, and then the next week is another guy getting hot, which might be good. However, you'd like to have everyone kind of get hot at the same time. That's ideal. It's not realistic, but it's ideal. That's what you would want. But maybe can two guys get hot at the same time in this lineup? Can three guys start knocking the cover off the baseball in this lineup at the same time, especially in a period where your starting rotation is taking a hit due to guys being hurt, due to COVID protocol? Like, can somebody, like, during this time where your pitchers are struggling, can you have maybe a couple of guys step up in this lineup? Because that would be more ideal. And you're not seeing that. You're not seeing them get those timely hits. You're trying to take advantage of a bad play in the field, like you did yesterday for your first run of the ball game against the Cardinals, and then you end up giving those runs back. But you need to see more than one guy at a time get hot in this Phillies lineup. And here's the amazing thing, that probably the most optimistic thing about all of this is that the Phillies are a half game out of first place. The Mets are in first place with a 9-9 record right now. 500 baseball. Susan Sarandon is recruiting Tim Robbins and Kevin Costner in the movie to be her lover for the season. And Kevin Costner gives that great speech. I believe the novels of Susan Sontag are BS, and he goes through the whole thing. The designated hitter, and there's outlaw the designated hitter. But if you remember, when Kevin Costner is playing the role of Crash Davis, he's talking about how you need those good things to happen in a baseball game. Whether you're having a slump and you need one ground ball with eyes, a dying quail, whatever it might be, it can turn things around for you. That's what Joe Girardi reminded me of yesterday when he was talking about Alec Boehm just putting good wood on the baseball and has nothing to show for it. And when he's talking about getting a bloop single or just getting a seeing eye grounder up the middle, those little things can turn the tides of a season. And I agree with that. They absolutely can, because baseball is so much about confidence. And coming up later in the show, we actually have a 2-guest day for you today, a jam-packed show for you. We have Ben Verlander of Fox Sports baseball analyst. He is, yes, the younger brother of Justin Verlander. And Ben's going to break it down for us because he recently spoke to Rhys Hoskins. And there's been a trend going on with Ben's show. When Ben has somebody on his podcast, and his podcast is Flippin' Bats with Ben Verlander, that guy gets hot almost immediately. Trey Mancini's the first one that jumps to mind of the Baltimore Orioles. He went on a great hot streak. Rhys Hoskins has certainly been red hot. Last night, not so much, but up until last night, very much red hot. He's now tied with two other players. One of them is Ronald Acuna Jr. For the Major League League in home runs with 8. There's now a 3-way tie with Rhys Hoskins with 8 home runs for the Major League lead. But he talks about that confidence. And he also talks about, in his podcast with Rhys Hoskins, he talks about where it kind of, like, what you do when it's not going right in your mind. What do you do to try to offset that and get back to the right way of thinking? And we'll talk about it during the interview. We'll play for you later in the show. But what Rhys does is interesting because it allows him to get pissed off at another sport. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Phillies, 7:45, back at it today against the St. Louis Cardinals, and we'll see how all that plays out. Now, let's slide right into our football portion of the show, if you will. Reuben Frank will be joining us in just a moment from NBC Sports Philadelphia. But yesterday, Sal Paolantonio, I give Sal a lot of credit for how he handles his Instagram account because Sal's not even on Twitter, but Sal's on Instagram. If you were to tell me Sal Paolantonio was name 3 social media networks that he'd be on, I would probably say Instagram last. But anyway, here he is on Instagram talking about who he thinks the Eagles are, not who he thinks, who he hears the Eagles are all about in this draft, and also who he would advise the Eagles to go after in this draft. So one is the report, what he thinks is going to happen. The other is what he wants to happen. This is Sal Palantonio via Sal's Instagram account. Take a listen.
I know the Eagles at number 12 are focused in on Devontae Smith, the Heisman winner out of Alabama, played at the Crimson Tide with Jalen Hurts. But I have a better idea. Pick the cornerback, J.C. Horn of South Carolina. Played 29 of 30 games for the Gamecocks. Super tough, super smart, will fit into Philadelphia, will fit into Jonathan Gannon's cover 2 defense. Right now, they can't line up on defense opposite Darius Slay. They need a tall, rangy, tough corner that's going to fit into this city and fit into this defense. And J.C. Horn is a plug-in and play player at the NFL level. Remember, he's the son of wide receiver Joe Horn. He gets it.
I always love the comparisons when it's your dad is playing the league and you understand what it takes. That would be the second time, if they do take J.C. Horn, it would be the second time in 2 years that they drafted the son of a professional football, or excuse me, an NFL player. Jalen Reagor, Monte Reagor, obviously, that's what they did last year, and this year it could be J.C. Horn, after Joe Horn. Anytime I hear the word need attached to, say, a top 15 pick even in the NFL draft, I get a little queasy because, as we all know, you shouldn't be drafting for need in the first round. You should be drafting the best player available in the first round, especially the top 15 picks. That's where my mind goes when I hear they need a corner. And I understand they do. They absolutely need a corner. And we'll talk about that more with Reuben Frank in a second. But I think you should take the best player available. And I think that you have a great opportunity here for Devontae Smith to be a more impactful player, and this is at 12, not trading up, a more impactful player on this team than J.C. Horn. And the other thing is, whenever you're talking about taking corners in the NFL that early, I understand it's a passing league and you need something to counteract that, but it's like every rule in the book is going against what you do defensively, while every rule in the book goes for what you could do offensively. So it's almost like, all right, you got one pretty damn good corner in Darius Slay, and then you really got nobody else. Are you going to really have 2 shut-down corners in the NFL? And also, let's face it, Avonte Maddox is probably the best corner that you've drafted, Howie Roseman. And Jalen Mills was a safety at LSU. You won a Super Bowl with him. You brought in Ronald Darby, who was your best corner on that team. Best defensive back, though, overall was obviously Malcolm Jenkins. But I'm not exactly looking at Howie Roseman to just knock it out of the park, so to speak, by drafting a corner that's going to come in and be a shutdown corner. Sidney Jones was supposed to be the steal of the draft. Obviously didn't work out here. And maybe that's more so to Jim Schwartz's scheme. Maybe Jonathan Gannon is the right guy you can draft corners for. He knows how to coach them up. But, man, if it comes down to Devontae Smith to help out my young quarterback right out of the gate, I'm going Devontae Smith over J.C. Horn. And I know once you say need, they really need a corner, that's where I start to lose you. If you say they really need a corner and you're talking about a top 12 pick, that's not where you're drafting for need. That's where you're drafting for skill. That's where you're drafting for best player on the board right now. Who's going to be the most impactful player? And that's where I would go Devontae Smith. Jalen Waddle, obviously another great name on the board that would most likely still be there at 12. But I have more confidence that it's going to be Devontae Smith still there. And if you can get a reigning Heisman Trophy winner, I know everyone wants to talk about his size. Everyone wants to talk about his weight. You're talking about adding a guy with 4.2 speed, 4.27 speed. I'm going to go ahead and add that guy to my wide receiving core, and also make sure that my quarterback in Jalen Hurts has somebody that he's played with, has somebody he knows, and he is going to be ready to fire on all cylinders when the season starts. That's what I like, especially in another year where you're not going to have those OTAs, in person at least, and God knows how they're going to actually run training camp this year. I'd rather get somebody that has already had reps with the quarterback. So that's where I'm at right now with the Eagles draft. Coming up tomorrow, 8 o'clock, things get underway in Cleveland. So that's where a lot of people are right now as well. Before we talk to Reuben Frank of NBC Sports Philadelphia, I do want to tell you about Steven Singer here at the Steven Singer Studios. Steven, Mother's Day just around the corner. Why not take advantage of all that Steven Singer is offering at Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut? Like right now, the Sunshine Yellow Gold Dip Rose dipped in 24 karat pure gold. It is beautiful. It's pristine. Dazzles, absolutely dazzles, and Mom will absolutely love it. So go to Steven Singer Jewelers. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. Order a gold dip rose. And here's what Steven's doing. Because he likes to say he's in the love business, and he is in the love business, he wants to point out just how important love really is. And we all really found that out over the last year, haven't we? He wants to make sure everyone's taken care of, the hospital heroes in the Philadelphia area, as well as the restaurants that have struggled during this time. So Steven's taking a portion of each gold dip rose purchased for Mother's Day. He's taking a portion of the proceeds there, buying food from the local restaurants, and thanking the hospital heroes, healthcare heroes throughout the Delaware Valley with that. So the restaurants get a much-needed boost, and the healthcare heroes get a much-deserved thank you. That's what Steven Singer's doing. And also, you're taking care of Mom. It's a win-win-win. Everybody wins with this. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Order the Sunshine Yellow Rose that is absolutely beautiful, sparkles, dazzles. You got to order this rose from Mom. Let her know how much you love her. Love her. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. One place, one price, every time at Steven Singer Jewelers. All right, we're going to be joined by one of the best guys to cover the Philadelphia Eagles in this city, a guy that's one of the most followed Philadelphia Eagles writers in the city, in the Eagles fan base, I will say, by the Eagles fan base. Without further ado, let's bring in from NBC Sports Philadelphia, my good friend, Mr. Reuben Frank. And joining us right now on the Zatos Investments guest line, my personal favorite Eagles writer. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him from NBC Sports Philadelphia. You can follow him on Twitter. He's one of the best follows around for music and football and really all sports. Reuben Frank. Rube, how are you, brother?
I appreciate the introduction, just the way I wrote it out for you. So.
You're a fabulous writer. I hope I really hit the words that you underlined. So I just hope I did that. Now, Rube, first off, I've been worried sick about you, to be honest with you, because with this whole like pandemic thing going around, concerts haven't been a thing. Have you got to a concert recently in some capacity? What have you been doing for your music fix?
Yeah, it would be pretty wrong if I complained about not going to concerts with all the stuff going on, things people are dealing with. Actually, my friend's band played. This is hilarious. My friend's band played at a gardening like festival in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, a couple weeks ago. Echo Kid. They're called Echo Kid. They're an RFA side project, and they played at 10:30 in the morning at a like a plant swap, like a farmer's market type thing. And I drove out there, saw them play. There was like a little coffee shop next door. Got my my iced tea. They had like chairs set up. We were outside. It was a beautiful morning, so I got nothing to complain about. And they were great. Echo.
Okay, that's awesome. I did not expect that answer. That was just unscripted. I just asked you that question out of the blue. First off, that's great. And second, I'm trying to think of somebody saying, "Are you ready to rock?" at like 10 a.m. So that's great. I'm glad you got to your music fix, so to speak.
Well, I played wing ball with LeCompte and Tommy Conwell.
Yeah,
we sound checked at 4:30 a.m. So, those guys had just come from a gig somewhere. So it wasn't the earliest show.
Sure enough. Yeah, absolutely. Rube, if your ears were ringing yesterday morning, it's because I was talking about you. I was talking about your latest article on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com right now and the My Teams app. And that is 5 bold predictions that you make for the Eagles' upcoming draft. One of them I loved, another not so much. The one that I loved, because I almost want Zach Ertz to just be done with the drama, is that the Eagles would use him to trade back into the top 10. It's a bold prediction, so that means it's most likely unlikely. But where would you put the Eagles in terms of how they're going to use Zach Ertz, if at all, in the draft to move up?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm kind of surprised he's still here. I think they're in a position where they can ask for the sky, and if they don't get it, they just wait. And at some point, someone's going to need a tight end. I wouldn't be surprised if they use him as a chip. I think it's more likely that a team that doesn't get the tight end they want in the draft over the next month or so is going to say, we need a tight end more now than we did in March. So I think his value will go up. And they handle it the right way. There's no reason to take a 5th round pick if you think you have a chance. You can always get a 5 for him. So if you think you have a chance to get a 3 or a 4 after the draft, I think it makes sense to wait and see how you can use him.
All right. Now, if the Eagles stand pat right here at number 12 and they don't trade up in the draft to 9 or wherever, if they don't trade up and stay right where they are, do you think they're looking more so defensive in that spot in terms of a cornerback or maybe an edge rusher, or do you think they're still going to go after maybe an offensive target?
Well, I mean, there's a small group of guys, that they've got prioritized, maybe, 4 or 5 guys. When they went from 6 to 12, they're like, all right, assuming there's going to be 5 QBs taken before we pick, we're going to get the 7th best non-quarterback in the draft. So, you look at it, and I think I'm guessing that they're prioritizing it as Patrick Surtain the second, who probably won't be there, but he might, and then Jalen Waddle second, and then you kind of go down. J.C. Horn, I think, is in that group. So I think Rashawn Slater's probably in that group. Caleb Farley, I just don't know what they think of his back situation, his injury, but I think there's just a small group of guys, and as they go, they're gonna cross them out, and then the top guy on that list is who they're going to take. I don't think they're thinking offense or defense. I think they're looking at who's going to drop into our lap.
All right. So more so. Oh, go ahead.
No, you can make a case that if you just stay at 6 and get that elite player. But it's a team that, and I didn't like the trade when they made it, but it's a team that's building for the future. It's not about this year. It's about next year and the year after. I understand that, but you just got to hope that 12 doesn't get there and they're like, oh, the guys we want they're all gone. And that's a risk.
How likely do you think it is if they see Waddle or they see Surtain or one of those players start to fall a little bit, and then they catch wind that maybe one of the teams a spot or two in front of them is going to take them? What are the odds you think you actually see them moving up in the draft to maybe 9, and what might that cost them?
Well, it's funny. Like, teams are overpaying. Like, there's that big chart that has the point values for each pick. So if you want to move from like 1,000 points to 1,200 points, you need a 200 point. But the numbers are out of whack this year. Teams are asking for more. Because so many teams are desperate to move up or trying to move up, and nobody wants to move down. So it's a weird deal. I don't think they're going to be able to move up. I just, maybe they can. I mean, if they've got some ammo, they've got 37 is a good piece, and they've got the 2 3s, but they don't have any players, Mark. They got no good players. So if you have these picks, at some point you got to stop playing with the cards and deal the cards. Stop shuffling the cards and deal a hand. And Howie's really good at maximizing value and turning this pick into that pick and all that. But at some point, you got to get players. Mm-hmm. So I kind of hope that they use those 4 picks in the first 3 rounds and get 4 players. Maybe one of them has a chance to be good, or 2 of them maybe. Lucky.
We're going to cross our fingers for that. Eagles still obviously have not committed anything towards Jalen Hurts in terms of saying out loud into microphones in front of media members and fans that he's the starting quarterback. How sold do you think the Eagles are right now on Jalen Hurts being not just the starter, but a franchise guy?
I just don't think there's any way to know. And I think they're going into it like you said, if, like, let's say Justin Fields starts dropping or Trey Lance. There's so many unknowns in the draft. It's all the speculation. You never know what's going to happen. So I would think that if somebody becomes available to them and they can go up a few spots and get them, they would do it. And I think that's why they answered the question the way they did the other day, because you don't want to say, oh, he's our guy, we're committed to him, go Jalen, and then 5 days later you're drafting a quarterback in the first round. If they do that, it makes you wonder why they drafted him in the first place. Sure. Because I thought he did some really good things when he played. You're talking about 3 games that he played start to finish, and for about 2.5 of them, he was really good. And then he like any young quarterback who didn't have a preseason and was playing on a terrible team with a coach who was kind of, I don't know if he was all there at that point, and just a bad situation, a terrible offense, no receivers. He did fine. He did as well as you expect. He played better than I expected. So I don't think there's any way to know what his ceiling is, how good he'll be. I would love to see him play 17 games and kind of know, because I think he has a chance to be pretty good. But if you're the Eagles and a sure thing drops into your lap, or close to a sure thing, then you got to take it. So I don't think they have any idea right now who their QB is going to be. I think it's most likely Jalen, but I wouldn't be shocked. Quarterback factory and all that stuff, would not be surprised if the opportunity presents itself if they go up and get one of those guys.
Speaking to Reuben Frank, NBC Sports Philadelphia, great Eagles coverage. Also, Eagle Eye podcast. You can check it out, available with NBC Sports Philadelphia as well as the My Teams app. Rube, so one of the other things that I didn't like so much about the bold prediction is the Eagles not taking a wide receiver early in the draft. A bold prediction. I still think they do. Is it something that you think is going to come to fruition that they don't take a wide receiver, or is it just a matter of where the board falls?
I don't think they're going into it with the same kind of sense of desperation that we all have for wide receivers. I think that they value some of their young guys more than maybe we do. And to me, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, Jalen Reagor did not show me a lot when he did play, when he was healthy. Fulgham had a great 5 weeks and didn't do anything else. I thought Quez Watkins did some good things at the end of the year. Hightower had a couple good There's just so many unknowns there. So to get an elite guy, to me, is something that if you have the chance to do it, you do it. But then you look at the flip side. Everything was such a mess last year that they might be thinking, how can we evaluate these young receivers? And you throw J-Jaw in there too if you want. We had a quarterback who couldn't complete a pass, a coach his play calling was baffling, an offensive line that was banged up and in shambles, and all these rookies coming and going. So is it really fair to evaluate Quez Watkins and John Hightower and Jalen Reagor and Travis Fulgham, who are all young kids, and say we need another guy when maybe they weren't the problem last year? Now, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying I know how they think, and I know that they think those guys have potential. So, to me, if you have a chance to get one of the top receivers at 12, I almost said at 6, at 12, I think you really have to think long and hard about doing it. But the reason it was kind of a bold prediction is because I know how they think. I've been around Howie long enough to know that he values those guys more than outside does. So if they don't take a receiver the first couple of days, I wouldn't be stunned.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, Howie, like you said, he's known for the wheeling and dealing and cap numbers and all that stuff, more so than he is for drafting. The thing that keeps on going around in my brain is that if this draft is a rough one, Howie could still possibly have 3 first-round picks in next year's draft. Do you see any short leash surrounding Howie right now, or is he still being given a lot of leeway from Jeffrey Lurie?
Yeah, that's the thing. You ever go to the park and you think that dog's not even on a leash, and the person's there, and then you notice there's actually a 50-foot leash. That's the leash Howie's on. He's on that 50-foot leash.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't have to explain it anymore. I don't know. I think that it's really hard. The thing is, there's always well, we don't know about this draft. It's still too early to know about last year's draft. Well, why would we fire Howie? What if Reagor's a star and he's just, just needs that consistent QB play? So you're always 2 years off from having your most recent drafts really evaluated. At some point, you have to look at the sum total of it, and the fact that this team hasn't drafted a Pro Bowl player since Carson, hasn't drafted one on defense since Fletcher Cox 9 years ago, hasn't drafted one outside the first round since Jason Kelsey 10 years ago. I mean, that's impossible. And so that wasn't all Howie. I mean, obviously, Chip was in there for 2015, but it's not a great record, and especially recently, especially since he came back into power in 2016. The people always ask me, does Howie have pictures of Jeff Lurie and all that? And I try to put myself in Jeff Lurie's shoes and see Howie the way he sees him. Howie Roseman built a Super Bowl roster. Jeff's owned this team 25 years now, 26 years, and he's won 1 Super Bowl, and Howie delivered that to him. Howie's, this was a playoff team 2 years ago. 3 years in a row they made the playoffs. That's the Howie Roseman Jeff Lurie sees. And the 1 year they won 4 games was during a pandemic with no preseason, and a coach who was disinterested, a quarterback who was melting down. And he sees Howie. He looks at Howie's notes, and I'm sure Howie's organized and runs a great meeting, and Howie's very persuasive. You talk to Howie, even BSing with him about anything, and he's very, very smart and persuasive. The only thing is he just can't draft players. But Jeff Lurie sees a guy who built a Super Bowl team, brought a Lombardi trophy to the NovaCare complex, has his team in the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, and he's seeing the big picture that isn't the same big picture that most of us see. So you try to really understand what. So for that reason, I just don't see anything changing. It's, I think Andy Weidl would be a heck of a GM. He's a really good football mind. I think part of the problem is Howie doesn't want to do anything else. Like if Howie went to Jeff and said, why don't you give someone else a shot, put me in charge of salary cap and this and that. But Howie loves personnel. He loves the draft. He doesn't want to do anything else. So I don't say they're stuck with him, but I just don't see anything changing. I really don't.
Well, to your point, when I try to do the same thing, look at it from Jeffrey Lurie's perspective. All right, why am I keeping this guy around? It's not just a matter of him putting that roster together. It's also a matter of him doing that 2 years after you told him, why don't you step back for a second? Told him not to do the job. Somebody else came in, lit a match, basically, and then Howie came back in and saved the day. 2 years later, you get that parade. So I try to think, how would I view that guy if he came in and delivered that Super Bowl to me? So you and I definitely think along the same lines when it comes to how Jeffrey Lurie would be perceiving Howie Roseman. This is something I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about yet. What do you make of Nick Sirianni so far?
I like him. I think he's got a chance to be a good coach. I like his staff. I like his energy. I know people were criticizing him for his presser. I mean, we just got through a season where this team had no life and no energy and no enthusiasm and no passion. So now you got a guy who's the opposite of that. And, these things can go, either way because he needs players and he doesn't have them right now. But I like what I see. I've had a chance to have some conversations with him, off camera and all that. And I really like him. I think he's going to – I think the players are going to respond to him and appreciate his enthusiasm. Nobody wants to go through what this team went through last year. And these guys were loyal to Doug Peterson. I think the fact that Kelsey came back, the fact that he didn't have to, I think there was a thought, well, Doug's gone, Carson's gone, Ertz is probably gone, Kelsey's going to retire. Jason Kelsey, I want to play. I want to play for this guy. I think that kind of thing helps. If you win, something John Harbaugh told me once about how when he started coaching the Ravens, he was a special teams coach with the Eagles. Nobody knew who he was. He said, I knew if I won over Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, my work was done because the rest of the team would follow. And he did. And he spent that whole first 4 months after he was named head coach winning those guys over and telling them exactly what they wanted to hear. And once he had them won over, everything else fell into place. And, they won a Super Bowl a couple years later. And I think when Kelsey kind of came back and you start hearing good things from other players, the veteran guys, Brandon Graham, Fletcher, that nucleus that's still here from 17, the young guys are going to respond. So I like what I see. I think the big thing is play calling, which he's never done. So we'll see how that goes. But I have a good feeling about him. It's going to take a while, though.
I love hearing that. I said after the most recent, the rock, paper, scissors, I don't know if you heard about that, the rock, paper, scissors thing in the press conference. I said, I don't want to make fun of the guy, but we're certainly going to have fun with it. And I am looking for more positivity because obviously you can't really judge him until you actually see him coach a football game, call plays and all that stuff, as you pointed out. So I'm holding out hope for this guy, and I'm certainly rooting for him. I'll tell you that much. Before I ask you about coverage with NBC, I'm trying to come up with a list, Reuben, and I got one, but I'm trying to come up with a list. What's that?
I like lists. I make lists. Do you know who? Can I tell you a quick story?
Please.
I was at the BB. What's it called? The whatever the arena is in Camden. The BB&T, whatever they call it.
The BB&T Center. Center, Pavilion,
yeah,
whatever.
So I
still call it the Tweeter Center.
Yeah, Tweeter Center, and I was going to see War on Drugs. It was before War on Drugs played, and you know who Natalie Press is? The singer-songwriter Natalie Press. She's married to Eric Slick, who's Dr. Dog's drummer, and Philly guy. And I saw Eric, and I know Eric, so I saw him down across the place. I went over there and to say hi to him, and he introduced me to Natalie, and he said, "This is my friend Reuben. He's the guy I told you about that makes lists." I was so proud.
Did I miss the 10 observations on the War on Drugs concert?
Yeah, I think I probably did one. I'll send it to you.
Please do. So I'm trying to come up because I'm like you. I didn't want the Eagles to trade back. I want them to stay at number 6. So I hate that they traded back. But I'm trying to come up with a list, and I'm calling it Marc, stop being a baby and just say who you want at number 12. Patrick Surtain is one of those guys that I really like. Jalen Waddle, I don't think he'll be there. I hope he is. I would love him at number 12. Devontae Smith, I like. Is there somebody at 12 or maybe even 2 players that Reuben Frank will still be happy if the Eagles get these players? Who would those top 2 names really be at 12?
Well, you just said them. If they could get, like you said, I don't think they have a chance to get Patrick Surtain the second, but if they can, he'd be my top choice. I mean, he would, they need corners more than they need receivers. They don't have anybody. Like their second best outside corner right now is probably Avonte Maddox, and he showed last year he can't play out there. And then after that, they have like Jamison Houston and Kayvon Seymour and Michael Jacquet and Graylin Arnold. I mean, at least they have wide receivers who you're like, wow, Quez Watkins could be pretty good. Mm-hmm. Travis Fulgham, we saw it for 5 weeks, maybe, over a full year with a new coach and a new scheme and a new system, a new core, but they don't have any cornerbacks. And Slay's 30. So I think that's such a desperate position. And if they could get, and again, with Farley, if they're okay with his medicals, I'd feel just as good about him as Patrick Surtain because he's really, really talented. I just worry about his back. So I would say him. Waddle, I would love to get him. He's just explosive and productive. And I think he really projects as a terrific NFL wide receiver. They'd be at the top of my list. I don't think they're going to get either one.
Is Devontae Smith on that list at all for you?
I like him. Yeah. I know people have issues with his size. 166 is really small. I mean, there's never been anybody that size to, I mean, he's really skinny. He's not short. He's like 6'1". So, he's almost built like Pinkston, really. No.
I know. It's just that name. Of course.
That's the closest comparison, build wise. Like Todd was like, 6'1", 6'2", 170. And, that's where he is. So he's not short. He's just really, really skinny. You just worry about him getting off press coverage at that size and being that small and, staying healthy and staying on the field. The thing is he played against the highest level of competition in college. He played against great quarterbacks that are all playing in the NFL now. So I feel pretty good about him. I think he's got a chance to be a player. And certainly if he's there, I would have no problem taking him as well.
I don't want to scare you, but you and I are so on the same page with a lot of this. And I know that probably scares me.
Everything.
Rube, what do you have coming up here? NBC Sports Philadelphia, My Team's app, draft coverage and all that. People should be following you. They probably do already if they're watching this show. What do you guys have coming up this week?
I'm taking off this week. I'm taking vacation week. No, my final mock draft is up today on the site. We had a great podcast actually with we had Chris Sims and Mike Golick join us for Eagle Eye. That's being posted as we speak. Mike's going to read one of the draft picks.
We had him on yesterday. He was talking about it. He was great.
Isn't he the best? I love
2 days ago now. Yeah.
Mike and I started. It's funny. My first day covering the Eagles was, and I know this because somebody got fired, and then Phil Sheridan, who you know very well, Phil got promoted to the column. And he was our Eagles beat writer. This is at Calkins, the Bucks County Courier-Times in Burlington. He got promoted to columnist, and they said, "Rube, you want to cover the Eagles?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And that was November 3rd, 1987. 9 days later, the Eagles got Mike Golick on waivers. So we started like a week apart.
Wow,
which is pretty amazing with the Eagles. But he was great, and Chris Sims, I really think he's one of my favorite analysts because he never kind of goes by the accepted conventional wisdom. He watches so much film, and his mock drafts and his opinions are out there. But I really admire him because it's really easy to just kind of follow the crowd with this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, and Chris has his own drum, man. No doubt about that. And I'm being honest here. I'm being real. Other than getting to talk to you and Dave and hanging out with Amy Fadul. One of the things I really miss about NBC Sports Philly is the fact that Chris Sims was always a great interview. like such a good time. And he always enjoyed joking around before you got down to brass tacks. So, yeah, great guy to interview. That's on the Eagle Eye podcast, you said?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then we'll have podcasts after each night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun, man. And once Thursday gets here, it's just such a blast watching it because it never falls the way you think. You know, you analyze it and you figure it out, every scenario covered. And then by like pick 4, the whole thing's blown up. It's so much fun.
Light it on fire after that. Reuben Frank, NBC Sports Philadelphia, the My Teams app, Eagle Eye podcast. Great talking to you as always, my friend. Great catching up. And thanks so much for coming on the Zatos Investments guest line, my friend. Thanks so much, brother.
Anytime, Marc.
All right. The great Reuben Frank, NBC Sports Philadelphia. Perfect. Once again, my thanks to the great Reuben Frank joining the show. Always great catching up with Rube. I'm glad he got to a concert. I'm glad he went to the Tweeter Center, the BB&T Pavilion. I'm aware. Interesting that he's with me on Devontae. Like, here's the thing. I think I do actually scare Reuben Frank when I am on the same wavelength as he is. And it happens more times than he wants to admit. But anyway, I like that he's on board with Devontae Smith. I like that he really likes Jalen Waddle as well. The funny thing about Devontae Smith is that that Todd Pinkston comparison, and Todd Pinkston, what people always remember about Todd Pinkston is you've heard of alligator arms, that's alligator body, which is one of the greatest calls ever. And it was by Joe Theismann on the ESPN Sunday night game when they had Sunday Night Football. And he said that about Todd Pinkston because Sean Taylor was going to knock him out in that game. It was what we all remember Todd Pinkston for. But the other thing is, before T.O. got to Philly, Todd Pinkston was the guy stretching the field here. And that's what I'll remember. Maybe a little bit more so than the alligator. Oh, who am I kidding? I'll remember alligator body more than anything. But I also remember before T.O. was here, the first guy Andy Reid really started stretching the field with in his play calling was Todd Pinkston. As weird as that. He ran one route, and that was a fly route, and it was only whenever he could be the deepest man on the field, which wasn't often. But that was the first guy that I remember not seeing run a consistent 5 and in, like the classic West Coast offense type of routes by a wide receiver. But that's what I remember. But if Devontae Smith obviously has that speed, you're talking about 4.27 type speed, a guy from Alabama, Heisman Trophy winner, yeah, I'd like to have him on my football team. And if he's there on the board, as well as J.C. Horn, as well as Patrick Surtain, I'm going Devontae Smith. Because I want to make sure that my quarterback, my second-round pick, as I've been telling you this entire time, has a legitimate weapon to throw the football to. And, what did you know? A guy that he's rather familiar with. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So thanks again to Reuben Frank for joining the program. Do want to tell you, coming up, we have Ben Verlander, Fox Sports baseball analyst, also host of a great podcast, and that podcast is Flippin' Bats. He'll join us to break down Rhys Hoskins, who he just interviewed for that podcast, and that episode dropped yesterday. So we'll talk to Ben Verlander about all things Rhys Hoskins and the Phillies coming up in just a minute, including if you have a brother. Now, Ben Verlander is 9 years younger than Justin Verlander. I have a brother. It was him and I growing up with no other siblings. And my one cousin always puts it rather well. If you didn't have multiple people in the house fighting over leftovers, then you really didn't have a sibling. Like that was kind of the way she put my one cousin Christina put it. And I thought that was a great way to put it. But if your brother's 9 years older than you, then they're going through a whole different version of life than you are, being 9 years younger. So I was curious, and I always like to ask this question to siblings, especially siblings of note. What did you fight over in the house? And Ben's answer to it is fantastic. We'll get to that in just a second. I do want to tell you right now about our good friends at PHLSportsNation.com. You can check them out over there at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. And how about DraftKings? Got a big bet segment coming up for you. Extended Farzy show today, in case you haven't picked up on that yet. We got the big bet segment. 2-0 last night. Again, I believe I'm now a little bit of a hot streak here. I'm 6-0 now. In my last 6 bets, not too shabby. So we'll tell you about those bets in a second. I got two more bets for you tonight that I'm keeping an eye on. One I'm definitely betting, and then one I'm definitely keeping an eye on. But I first want to tell you about DraftKings, the DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, the leader in daily fantasy sports. They're adding to the thrill by offering a free-to-enter draft pool this Thursday with $50,000 up for grabs. DraftKings free-to-play pool are easy. They're easy to play. Just download the DraftKings app, go to pools on the app, and choose from a wide variety of free contests for an opportunity to win cash prizes. All you have to do is answer a handful of questions around what you think is going to happen on draft night, and you can track your predictions throughout the night. DraftKings will be hosting a night of specific pool for questions ranging from who will be picked, before whom, all that, as well as all the stuff going on draft night. DraftKings safe, secure, reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy for the DraftKings pool with $50,000 at stake right here. It is unbelievable. Great prizes up for grabs as well. That's promo code Farzy. Free shot at $50,000 in total prizes only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. How about our friends at Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com? Steak and Maine Fine Dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. They just had a steak challenge yesterday. My man Tony Cavada cooking up a lot of steak for a lot of his customers, a lot of his contestants for the challenge. Looked fantastic. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, freshly prepared sushi as well. They got it all right there at Steak and Maine. All that in an extensive wine list, including their own Cavada Cellars wines. Right now, they're open for every day. Every day they're open. Lunch, dinner, Sunday brunch, everything. Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel, so you know they're worth checking out. And you can check it out for yourself. Go to steakandmaine.com for more information. Also, our friends at FanUp, they are taking the fantasy world by storm. They're taking the challenge world by storm. Go to the App Store, download the FanUp app, and get in on all the fun. They got some great stuff going on, ladies and gentlemen. You can win brand prizes, memorabilia, great prizes like a Peloton bike like they gave away a couple of weeks ago. The days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. Enter FanUp super fun daily and weekly contests, answer fun questions, and rise on their leaderboard. Squad up with your friends and try to win even more. FanUp, I'm doing it with my friends. You should too. It's a great time. It's fun, easy, and the only place to win the hottest brand prizes, like a pair of Jordans they also gave away a couple of weeks ago. Download FanUp in the FanUp store, or excuse me, download the FanUp app in the App Store and use promo code FanUp. That's promo code FanUp to get 2,000 bonus points right out of the gate. FanUp, may the best fan win. Now it's time for our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. I'm going to lead it off with some Twitch comments today. What? Yeah, that's right. Twitch comments, folks. First Down Frank. I don't even know who that's a reference to, but he named his account after him. Way to go, First Down Frank. I like Avante. A lot of us like Avante. I like Avante Maddox a lot. I just think that he's better on the inside spot. He can't be playing against the wideout, so to speak. What else do we have here? Benny Littman. What's up, Benny? Benny's saying the same thing. You got to have him on the inside. I agree. Benny Littman saying, I think he's saying Howie is smelly. I don't think he's saying I'm smelly, but I think he's saying Howie is smelly, like he stinks. I'll put that together for you. What else do we have here? H. Smith checking in saying he knows we're here. I know you're here. I told you yesterday I was going to come over here and check you guys out. So thanks for dropping in here on Twitch. Flip it over to our YouTube page right now. A lot of the usual suspects, and I appreciate that. Where's my man, Matt? Matt Zunemeyer is saying, Mark, you sure you're not 45? Because I called it the Tweeter Center. I mean, I grew up here. I remember when it was the Tweeter Center, and that was the first thing I remember it being. And then what was it? Susquehanna Bank Center, I believe is what it was after Tweeter Center, and now BB&T Pavilion. But I feel like I'm leaving one out. I'm leaving one out. Anyway, I'm a lawn guy. When I go over there, I sit on the lawn. I have fun with my friends, and we have a good time. Let's see. Last concert I saw there, I think it was, that's my desk breaks in half. I think it was Dave Matthews. I think I saw Dave Matthews there. And it was the first concert I went to where there was like high school. Now I'm going to sound like I'm over 40 again, but 45. It was the first concert I went to where there was like high school kids. And I was like, hey, you don't know this music. This is my music. Get your own music. My generation. Mine. Anyway. Saw Dave Matthews at the vet a bunch of times. Craig's checking in saying Todd Pigston. Yikes. I agree. But again, fly route. What else do we have here? List guy. John's checking in saying list guy. Reuben does enjoy lists. They're very organized, and Reuben's a very organized guy. What else do we have? Phillies this year. This is from April. Phillies this year are absolutely mediocre. Need more players to start stepping up. This is me agreeing with you, April, as per usual. Great Temple minds think alike. Matt's also checking back in and saying, do you guys think Hurts is for real? Look, if you're asking me to bet money as to whether or not Jalen Hurts is the guy for the Eagles, franchise guy, and that's what I would determine as for real, right? No, I'm not betting on Jalen Hurts. And not maybe. I'm not looking at a second-round pick in this day and age to be the guy that carries the football team, to be that franchise quarterback. Now, with that being said, look at what just happened with a guy you took second overall. You had 5 years. You won a Super Bowl, not with him in the Super Bowl, but I don't think you don't win that Super Bowl without Carson Wentz in terms of where you were at the time that he went out against the Rams, as we all know. But I look at these guys that are taken at least in the first round, and those are the guys that really seem to be pushing your team forward. And I know other teams have jockeyed for position to move up to the top 2 picks in the NFL draft, and then those have been duds, whether that's Sam Darnold right now, who I still think could be a pretty damn good quarterback in the NFL, whether that's Jared Goff, who did play in a Super Bowl and lost, unfortunately, to the Patriots in a really weird Super Bowl. Defensively dominant, I should say. When you look at those guys, it doesn't exactly make the case for what I'm about to give you here. But I just don't see the Eagles drafting a guy that they saw as a backup quarterback to Carson Wentz and then all of a sudden be like, oh, no, did we say backup? No, this is the guy that's going to be the franchise guy. So I don't see that happening. I think he's athletic. I think he could certainly prove me wrong. He's definitely made some great throws last year. I liked what Jason Avant told us a couple of months ago about how if he doesn't know the play, he makes the play. And if that's the way you're going to be as a quarterback, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. I would rather him in his second year, and now his first year as being the starter, I'd rather him know the play and make the play. So hopefully that's not too much to ask for Jalen Hurts. But if you're asking me right now, yes or no, is he for real? No. I'm going to say he's not for real. Still, the jury's out. We'll see how he plays this upcoming season. That'll be the ultimate determining factor, as we all know. What else do we have here? James checking and saying, do we need Howie to think he's do we need Howie to think that he's smarter than he is? Howie already thinks he's smarter than he is. So I guess we want a time machine as far as that goes. Brett brings up a great point from Reuben Frank about Zach Ertz. I'm not putting it past the Eagles to trade Zach Ertz on draft day. I still think that's a possibility. I do think, though, it's a bigger possibility for the Reuben Frank take to play out, where guys don't get the tight end they wanted in the draft, and that's where they decide to trade for Zach Ertz after the draft. I still think the most logical thing is trading him on draft day to be able to move up to a different round, using that to package him and move up. We have talked about that for weeks. Adam Kaplan certainly reported that last week. But I think if I'm betting money in this regard, I am betting Zach Ertz to be traded after the draft. I don't think it happens during the draft. I don't think it happens the day of. I think it happens after the draft where teams realize they've missed out on the tight end that they wanted, and that's where they'll actually go ahead and trade for Zach Ertz. And yes, he'll be packaged along with a pick, and hopefully you'll be getting something in next year's draft is how we stockpiles right there. Thanks for everyone that checked in on our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. I do want to get to our morning rush. Just real quick, our morning rush, I always like to give you an NBA score. And I just want to give you this NBA score because it made me feel so good. Hey, this isn't a joke, but here you go. The Boston Celtics lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder. That happened. Let us bask in that for just a second. God, I really enjoy the Celtics sucking at basketball, so that's great. Thunder beat them 119-115. Bucks won last night against the Hornets 114-104. I'll give you the big bets at the end of the show, as I always do, but without further ado, I really enjoyed this conversation. 2 guests today One was Reuben Frank. Always enjoy Reuben. Ben Verlander of Fox Sports joined the show. We had a conversation yesterday as his episode with Rhys Hoskins dropped on his podcast, Flippin' Bats. Without further ado, we break it down, all things Rhys Hoskins, all things Phillies, and also what it's like to be in the Verlander family. So let's jump back to the Zatos Investments guest line and talk to Ben Verlander of Fox Sports. Joining us now on the Zatos Investments guest line, it's my great honor to welcome in the host of a phenomenal podcast and one of my favorite titles for a podcast ever, with Fox Sports MLB analyst Ben Verlander, host of Flippin' Bats. That's the name of the podcast, Flippin' Bats with Ben Verlander. Love the Twitter handle, by the way. People should give you a follow and check out the podcast wherever they get their podcast. Ben Verlander, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much for having me, man.
I got to say, I'm not a selfish person, but if I could do an impression of a selfish person real quick, I hope you do for me what you've done for all the people that have been on your podcast, Flippin' Bats, like Rhys Hoskins, who since he's been on, knocking the cover off the ball. Trey Mancini, Glass is hit him out of the park as well. I mean, you are the kingmaker, my friend.
I don't exactly know what's happening, but it's becoming insane. I had Tyler Glasnow on, who we know Glasnow has great stuff, but he's like going insane this year. The episode came out with Rhys this morning, and I sent it to him on Instagram, and he was like, by the way, I know whenever I need to get some more hits, where to go. It's becoming ridiculous, dude.
I look forward to checking YouTube and all our digital social media platforms, whatever, and just seeing the numbers go through the roof over the next couple of weeks. And we will be thanking Ben Verlander for that. Now, Ben, it is interesting. When I was listening to the podcast, you talk about that, like Rhys saying to you, he's going to reach out to you the next time he goes through some struggles, and it's baseball. As you know, this game has a way of humbling you every once in a while. But I love the question you asked of Rhys Hoskins when you were asking him kind of when he's not on fire, when he's finding some struggles, when he's slumping a little bit, if there's anything he does to try to take his mind off the game. And his answer was fantastic. He said, me, like some other players, we like to go out and go golfing so that we'll get mad at the game of golf as opposed to baseball. And I love that answer.
You know, you said it. Baseball is a very humbling game. And look, I know it more than anybody. I played professionally for 5 years and had some success and had a lot of failure. And that's baseball. And everyone's going to go through it. And I feel like that's something unique that I bring to the table with my show is I've been through a lot of the grind that these guys went through. And I know what Rhys is going through when he's seeing the ball well and when he's struggling. And I want to ask him those things. I ask my guests questions that I'm genuinely curious about as a fan of the game and as somebody that played. Like, look, I struggled. I know you've struggled. What do you do when you go through those rough patches? Because whatever I was doing sure as hell didn't work. So what is it that you're doing that makes you so successful, and to be able to get out of it quicker than somebody that, quicker than most?
Mm-hmm. How do you like the broadcasting side of baseball as opposed to being on the field? You were in the Tigers organization for a number of years, obviously. How are you liking this aspect of being the guy that's interviewing the players as opposed to the guy being interviewed, with the exception of this conversation, of course?
I'm loving it. And I said early on from when I started doing this that I really feel like I was put on this earth to talk about baseball. And I would have loved to play and to play in the big leagues and to have a super successful career. But that's not what the case ended up being. And I wanted to stay in the sport. I am in love with baseball. It is my passion in life. And I truly feel like I was put on this earth to talk about baseball, and to be able to do that now and to have my show and to bring on guys that I can relate so well with and feel like I'm having like a locker room type conversation with them, which is the whole point of the show. I just want to bring on guys and just have fun with them and ask them questions that I'm curious about. And I've absolutely loved it. And and I feel like I'm in a really good place.
Yeah, when I decided to get into sports broadcasting, it was the same type of thing, except I peaked in 8th grade athletically. So it was kind of just wanting to be around sports for the rest of my life. It was no minor league ball. Like I said, I peaked in 8th grade. Now, you played against Rhys Hoskins in the minor leagues, no?
I did. Yeah. Reese and I played against each other. I think he was in Clearwater. I think we played against each other quite a bit. It might have been for the better part of 2 years, but yeah, we know each other quite well, basically from just our, it's kind of an interesting dynamic when you get on first base, the dynamic between the first baseman and the batter. And, you get to know each other. You play each other so many times throughout the course of the year. And if a guy's always playing first base, you get to know him quite well just from being on base and pitching changes. And, it's not just, what's up, man? What's up? So yeah, I got to know him pretty well.
Here in Philadelphia, I know Ryan Howard for a number of years while he was occupying first base for the Phillies, always called it first base talk. And he would always ask a question to somebody on first base. And he would say like, hey, when you're red hot and then it goes away, where does it go? And that would be like the way he would start a conversation at first base. And that's something that's interesting. We were just talking about with Reese, how you kind of rebound from those struggles. And one of the things we've kicked around here as media members, as fans of the Phillies, and certainly of Rhys Hoskins, is he did have that incredible start. And then it seemed like after Pete Mackanin, there was Gabe Kapler, and now there's Joe Girardi, and there's been a number of hitting coaches in between. And it just feels like there is too many voices, or at least have been too many voices in Rhys Hoskins' head that have messed with his approach. Obviously, right now, he's knocking the cover off the ball, once again, since being on your show. But what have you noticed from Rhys Hoskins over the years? And did he give you any insight as to why there's been such up and down, really slumps in his career?
I think it comes down to the fact, like, whenever there's too many voices in your head, hitting is, once you get to a certain level, once you're playing professionally, it's almost feels like it's 90% mental. And, we all have swings when you get to that point. You know how to swing. You're one of the best in the world at hitting. And it gets to a point where it becomes so mental. And when you have everybody trying to put their hand in the pot and be that reason that Rhys Hoskins start hitting well again, you have so many people do this, because they want to be that voice that can say, yeah, I said this and he started hitting well again. And it becomes like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what do I do this? Do I do that? And it gets away from just having fun playing baseball and relying on your swing that you've known as good your whole life. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for getting in the video room and breaking down your swing and seeing what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. But when you have, somebody different seemingly every few months coming at you and saying, hey, this is what you need to be doing. Let's work on this, or let's work on this. It just becomes too much. And it makes you start thinking in your head, like, what am I supposed to be doing? And just that single thought right there is enough to make you struggle.
Yeah. What do you have? 0.4 of a second to try to react to a pitch coming, whatever it is. The less thinking, the better, right?
It's something ridiculous like that. And I had a discussion recently because there's been talk of moving the mound back a foot in the Atlantic League, which I hate. But as a hitter, it's supposed to help the batter. But it brought about a discussion from my end of, it really made me think about what I do as a batter. And I would be in the box and getting ready to face a guy that's throwing 95, 100 miles an hour. And mentally, it would come down to literally me timing when I blink. A guy's throwing 100 and I'd be in the box. And this is something I didn't think about until I'm in this position now. And I'm like, oh my God, that's ridiculous that I had to do that. But I would literally be like, okay, get ready, blink now, go. And it's like, if you don't time your blink right, you're screwed. And that's crazy.
Yeah, no, maybe that's why I peaked in 8th grade. I never timed my blinks.
That's the whole key that you missed out on, is you weren't timing your blinking correctly.
It had nothing to do with speed or stamina or desire. Anyway, so what do you make of Rhys right now? From your conversation with him, what do you make of him? When do you think he's at his best? The aggressive Rhys Hoskins, or the guy that's trying to drive up the count and work walks? Because walks really haven't been his thing so far this year. When do you think Rhys is at his best?
I think he's in a really good place right now. And I think a lot of it is when he's not overthinking, when he's not trying to get deep into counts and really worrying about that. And I think it's more, it looks for him right now that it's just see ball, hit ball. And hitting is the most complicated thing in the world. And by a lot of people's standards, it's the hardest thing to do in sports is hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And what you need to do at the end of the day is to try and simplify it. It is not easy, but when you can go up to the plate and trust your swing, I think that's the biggest thing for him right now is he's trusting his swing. And it's right now for him in his head, it's see ball, hit ball. Oh, I'm getting a first pitch fastball. I'm going to hit this. And he's doing great. And I think he's at a place right now where he's simplifying baseball. And that's where you see the best in the world succeed. I mean, look, I don't think anybody makes the game look easier than Mike Trout. You know, he's simplified the game in his head, and it looks like that's what Reese is doing right now is he's simplified baseball for him.
I'm curious from your own perspective, being a professional athlete and now being a broadcaster and of course MLB analyst for Fox Sports. When you and hosting your podcast, Flippin' Bats, how is the preparation similar in terms of preparing for a broadcast versus a game?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. When I am getting ready for an interview, I'll do a lot of prep. And recently I was sitting there like prepping for, I forget who it was that I was getting ready to interview, but I was like, wait, this is almost like I'm scouting that next day's pitcher. And it was kind of funny. I was like, I've done this for years. This is easy. And I got this in the bag. So there definitely are some similarities.
Yeah, the only thing is you get to eat and drink whatever you want while you're doing that prep. That's the beauty part.
Exactly.
You don't have to worry about, running around the bases the next day. I'm always curious, when going through the minor leagues and all that, when does the buzz start for a prospect that is really starting to hit his stride? We have certainly had some false prophets here in Philadelphia. And not to name names, but guys that have knocked the cover off the ball or guys that have thrown 100 miles per hour in the minors, and then they get to the majors, and unfortunately it doesn't work out. When does that buzz start around the minor league systems of, wow, this kid just might really have it?
I think a lot of it depends on where that person was drafted, how much money that person got, unfortunately, because you see a first rounder, if that guy comes out and hits 350 his first couple weeks of the season, it's, oh, this guy's real. He's the real deal. We did a great job. And then if you look at it, like a 14th rounder, like myself or my best friend is a fringe big leaguer and now over in Japan, Mike Gerber. He was also a 14th or 15th rounder. And it took him like 3 seasons of hitting over 300 to even be considered like a guy. And, unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. And I get it. You're an investment at the end of the day. And if a team invests a lot of money in you and you start performing well, you're immediately going to be a guy. Right. If they don't have a lot invested in you, you're going to have to go above and beyond for a long period of time to be considered a guy.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Speaking with Ben Verlander here, MLB analyst for Fox Sports. When did you know that you would be able to play professional baseball? When did you have a feeling that you'd be able to at least, break it into the professional ranks?
Yeah, so going throughout college, I played college ball at Old Dominion in Virginia. And, my first 2 years of college, I hit and I pitched. I was a dual player. And not that there's anything wrong with being an average Division I baseball player, but I was average at both. I don't throw 103 like somebody else in my family does. I threw like mid to upper 80s, and it just wasn't the same. And it got to the point going into my junior year that my head coach at the time sat me down and said, look, you're not going to get drafted as both. You need to pick one. And I ended up saying, you know what, I want to create my own path. I want to be my own person. And I feel like I have a better chance at hitting. So I decided to become a full-time hitter, and it immediately paid off. I became an All-American. All-American my first year of fully hitting, and got drafted in the 14th round by the Tigers. And my first professional season, I made an all-star game in short season in Connecticut. And doing that was kind of like, you know what, like I've worked hard to be here, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I've earned this, and it was a cool feeling.
You mentioned it. You are Justin's younger brother. I think anyone who's gone to the same high school even as their older sibling, and if that older sibling had any name for themselves whatsoever, I can't imagine what it's like to be in Major League Baseball. I can't imagine what it's like to be in professional baseball at all, and then have someone like Justin in the family. What was that like for you personally, to be the brother of Justin Verlander in professional baseball's rankings?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's something I've had to deal with my whole life. He's 9 years older than me. So, when I was 12 years old, when I was 13 years old, he was in the World Series and winning a Rookie of the Year. And it's like, it's tough to, and then I, in my own right, played baseball and wanted to be good at baseball. And, no matter what I did, and this isn't like a shame or anything, like,
right.
Nothing I did would be able to compare. He's a future Hall of Famer. So everything I did, I would get compared to my brother. And it's just, I understand that. I get it. And it's like everything I did, my parents luckily would be there and be like, like I would sign to play at a Division I college, and I'd be like, this is just the next step. And my parents would have to sit there and say, Ben, this is an incredible achievement. Focus on this, like realize what you're doing. And it's almost like every single thing I did, I would personally just compare myself to my brother and be like, this is just the next thing I need to do. I need to do this. And then I got drafted and I'm like, I need to do this. And it got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I need to create my own path. I need to be my own person. And whatever happens, happens. And I decided to become a full-time hitter. And kind of, when everybody thinks of Verlander, you think of him on the mound. So it was important for me to be the hitter and to be successful in my own right at the plate. And I feel like I did a pretty good job of that. So yeah, it's not easy. Everywhere I went to the same high school, I went to the same college. And then I ended up getting drafted by the same organization, which happened last second. I thought I was going to get drafted by the Dodgers. They called and I was going to, and then the Tigers. So I went to the same organization, and it's kind of always, there's a shadow, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of creating my own name.
I would say so. The other part of this is when you do have a brother, now 9 years older than you, you might not have had this as much as some of us. I have a brother who's 3 years older than me. What was the main fight with the brother? Was it over leftovers in the fridge? Was it over a video game? What was the main fight in the household?
I can tell you exactly what the main fight was over. Probably our biggest fight to this day. I don't know how old I was. He was probably in high school. So I'm probably 8 years old, and he was playing a video game. It was Resident Evil.
Ooh, great one.
And it was like it was a first person storyline type game, and he was like deep into this game. And one day I came home from school and wanted to play this video game, so I started from the beginning and I went to save it, and I saved over his game. And he was like months into this. And I still don't know if he's forgiven me. It was so bad. But you're right. Like, he's 9 years older, so we don't have the typical, we're going at it all the time. We're fighting. We're wrestling each other. It was different. And man, that was a bad one though.
As at the time we do this interview, the Phillies are a half game out of first place behind the New York Mets. You have said on your podcast, much like many people, the NL East is probably the best division in baseball. How good do you think the Phillies will at least put up a fight in this division? Do you have them winning it? How good do you really see the Phillies being this year?
Yeah, they really I was really high on their offense going into the year, as anybody should be. Their lineup is great. Bryce Harper obviously is a superstar. And I actually on this podcast this week talked about how I think Bryce Harper is underrated actually and doesn't get the love he deserves. And I think the lineup is awesome, but the pitching was the question mark. And they came out the first series of the year against one of the best offenses in baseball and shut them down. And the bullpen didn't even give up a run. And the starters looked awesome. And it kind of made me on my show that next week, I was like, look, guys, if this starting rotation can be anything like what they looked like in the opening series, these guys have every bit of a chance as the Braves and the Mets to win this division. And I still believe that if they can get, Aaron Nola's looked great. Zach Wheeler, he's kind of like, what are we going to get out of him? But he's shown flashes of greatness. And Eflin's looked good. If those guys can be the pitchers it appears they can be, I really think these guys have every bit of a chance of winning the division.
Yeah, I would. I certainly hope so. It'd be great to have some playoff baseball in Philadelphia again. It's been over a decade, so I'm hoping more appearances on the Ben Verlander show, flipping bats, will help out this lineup. Maybe more so. Maybe you reach out to Bryce. Maybe you reach out to JT Realmuto. Maybe Alec Boehm, their third baseman, get him going again.
I need to start. What I need to start doing is looking for guys that like start to struggle. Because look, baseball guys are creatures of habit. Bryce ain't coming on my show right now. I can tell you that much. He's hitting 350 with a bunch of bombs. He's like, I got to do everything the exact same.
So, Ben, I'll wait till I struggle. I do want to ask you this because I like asking everybody this question. Analytics in baseball. I have been a baseball first guy my entire life. Love the sport. I feel like a slow game has become only slower because of all the numbers that are being used right now to dictate the pace of play and all that. My theory is, to be full disclosure here, my theory is analytics are invited to the party, but they shouldn't be throwing the party. Where are you at with the analytics in baseball?
I think analytics have a place in baseball. I think it's very important. I think, look, at the end of the day, numbers are numbers. You can't argue with them. But you get in trouble when, look, you think of one of the most analytical teams out there in the Rays, and maybe the numbers say one thing with Blake Snell, and I think that came back to cost them at least Game 6 and potentially the World Series. You know, like, look, Blake Snell, the numbers say after the 5th inning, he starts getting hit. After, the third time around in the order, he starts getting hit. Okay, we need to take him out of the game. Watch what's happening. And I don't want to continue to use this example, but I think as a whole, this is a great example. Watch what's happening on the field. There's a time and a place for numbers. Keep them in the back of your head. But this guy's having a career game and absolutely in the zone. And that's a time you need to say, you know what? These numbers, I'm going to throw them out the window. I'm going to let this guy go do his thing. And I think I think that in a nutshell is my thought with analytics. Of course, there's a place for it. It's changed players' careers. Being able to look at spin rate, being able to look at all that stuff has changed guys' careers. But at the end of the day, it's about going out there and competing and being better than the guys on the other side of the field.
Ben, you're being so generous with your time, and I appreciate it. Just the last thing I caught from your podcast was, is it your favorite uniform in baseball, or is it up there, the powder blue Phillies uniform?
The powder blue Phillies blue was my number one uniform in all of baseball. I did a list earlier this year, I did like a top 5 list or top 10, and the Phillies was my number one. The powder blues was my number one. It is in my set for my podcast has like 5 lockers in the background, like on an LED wall. And I got to put in the jerseys I wanted in there. And the Phillies powder blue, Bryce Harper is one of the jerseys in the locker. And I love the jersey. And I actually asked Reese on the podcast because you guys have so many jerseys you play in and so many great ones, man. The maroon ones are sick.
Oh, I love
the home ones, the cream ones are sick. So I asked Reese actually what his favorite uniform is and what his favorite to play in is. So it was a fun interview for sure.
It's a great interview. You did an awesome job with Reese Hoskins, and I appreciate you coming on with us to talk about that interview even more. Anybody you have coming on flipping bats in the not too distant future we can promote?
Yeah, we got obviously Reese this week, and we have Lance Lynn coming up soon. I did an interview with him yesterday, and actually Rachel Luba, who's Trevor Bauer's agent and Yasiel Puig's agent. So that was an exciting one. We have that coming up soon as well.
Awesome. Ben Verlander, catch him analyzing Major League Baseball, obviously, for Fox Sports, as well as Flippin' Bats podcast hosted by Ben Verlander. I'll put it up one more time so people can check it out. Also, follow him on Twitter at Verly32. Ben Verlander, my absolute pleasure. Thanks so much, and continued success with the podcast, both for your podcast and the players you have on it, as long as they're not playing the Phillies anytime soon.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure, and I'd love to come back whenever you'll have me.
Absolutely. Ben Verlander joining the show here on the Zatos Investments guest line. I really enjoyed that conversation with Ben Verlander, so I do appreciate him coming on the Zatos Investments guest line, obviously. Well, first off, the Verlander parents, Mom and Pop Verlander, sound like phenomenal people. To not get all caught up in like Justin's success and Be like, yeah, Ben, that's cute. You play baseball too. Anyway, so back to you, Justin. Like, good for them. That's beautiful. It's nice to hear when you hear some bad stories about parents in sports. That's a great story about parents in sports. As far as turning off Justin Verlander's video game, or not turning it off, saving over it. Yeah, I've been there. The thing I remember doing with my brother is if we were really pissed off at one another, we would wait. This is how maniacal we would be as kids. We'd wait until we knew the other person was getting far in a video game, and then we'd run up and turn it off and run out of the room. That only happened a couple of times because blood followed. But anyway, appreciate Ben Verlander jumping on there. And I look forward to talking to him again. Seems like a great baseball mind. And for some of the people that hit me up on, I believe it was YouTube, saying, hey, make sure you ask him about his sister-in-law. Yeah, that's how you start a relationship. You have one interview, you build a rapport, and then you ask about the sister-in-law, who's Kate Upton, for those that don't know. By the way, Benny Lippman hit me up here saying that Howie was smelly, right? Well, he also following up saying, well, I didn't say you weren't smelly, Mark. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And First Down Frank, now I get it. You named your account after Reuben Frank, so I appreciate that. By the way, I did the Morning Rush already, and that's brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Time to follow up now with our big bet segment to close out the show. What did I tell you? What did I tell you yesterday? I liked Minnesota minus 1.5 at Houston, and I liked the Brooklyn Nets minus 6.5 at Toronto against the Raptors. Both those Johns hit yesterday, so I hope you enjoyed some cash flow right there with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. And, of course, that's who brings us big bets. I gave you 2 road teams yesterday. I like 2 home teams today. Sixers minus 8 against the Hawks tonight. And then I also like the Cavaliers. I like the Cavaliers minus 2 against the Orlando Magic. That's what I'm going with tonight in our big bets segment. Thanks for watching this extended version of the Farzy Show. Thanks to Ben Verlander. Thanks to Reuben Frank. We'll be back with you talking all things NFL draft tomorrow. Just so I continue my streak of talking about the Flyers. The Flyers lost yesterday. That's the mention that they're worth right there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Jim Hyden produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow on Draft Day in the NFL. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Also hit us up on Twitch and all our social media platforms. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take it easy.